Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're here with Arwen today, and I'm actually really glad she's lying down and still because I want to talk about goat hooves. So, thank you, Shadowfax. So, we've been talking about goat health, and it would be remiss of me not to mention their feet. Okay, now her feet are kind of mucky right now because it rained last night, so the ground's really wet and she's walking around the mud, so her feet are kind of muddy. But the health of your goat is dependent on the health of their feet. There's Tequila. So, hi Tequila. So your goat walks on their feet all day. Okay? If their feet are not in good shape, your goat is in serious trouble. Their feet need to be in good shape because they need to walk around and get food. They need to walk around and get water. They need to walk around to exist. If their feet are not in good shape, your goat has some trouble. So, you need to check your goat's feet and trim your goat's feet. Her feet are in need of a trim. Luckily, the farrier is coming out in a couple weeks. But her feet are in need of a trim. So, the growth of your goat's hooves is determined by the type of soil you have, by the moisture in that soil, by the breed of goat, by the time of year, and by your individual goat, because goats are individuals. Some goats grow much faster, their hooves, some don't. So you really have to kind of play it by ear a little bit. Trimming those hooves protects the integrity of the hoof itself. Okay? You want to plan between 2 and 6 times a year, again depending on the goat. She's about 4 times a year. Okay, and I have a farrier do it because I have a bad back. I can't do a lot of bending, and frankly, when you are trimming a goat's hooves, you got to get right down where the goat's hooves are, and that's a lot of bending and a lot of goat noses. Yeah. So I don't do it myself anymore. I have a farrier come and do it. The same farrier who does Shadowfax also does the split-hooved animals like goats and sheep and pigs. So I just have the farrier do it. You can hire a farrier or you can learn to do it yourself. Okay, there are some excellent videos showing you how, or you can have an actual farrier teach you how to do it. So, it is easier to trim their hooves when the hooves are moist. Okay, if they're really dry, they're going to crack, and that's not good. That can introduce bacteria, and we got Pippin coming. Hi, Pippin. Yeah. So, you want the hooves a little bit moist. That can mean applying an ointment, which is a lot of fun. A lot of fun, kind of annoying. But you can apply an ointment to moisten the hooves, or like right now it's really wet here. So we're not going to have a problem with hooves being moist. Okay, not a big deal. So you want to trim whenever, I like to trim like when we're deworming and like kind of schedule it that way so that you kind of are on a bit of a schedule so you're not so willy-nilly about it. When you don't want to trim is at times when your goat is under a lot of stress. So if your goat is pregnant, avoid trimming in late pregnancy. If your baby goats are weaning, don't trim their feet then. If the weather's been really nasty, don't trim their feet then either. You want them to be relaxed and calm and facing as little stress as possible. You want to use the proper tools. I like hoof shears personally. But it's really up to preference. You might use hoof nippers or a hoof knife, maybe a rasp. It really depends on what you are comfortable using. I have always liked to use hoof shears, but some people don't like hoof shears. Use what works for you. Yes, the sun is out really nice. It's nice today. We're napping in the sun. When you're trimming, you want to secure your goat. This is why it's good to have a second person. Either hold the goat or tie the goat. Especially larger goats should be tied. If the goat is quite small, you might be able to trim in arm. So have somebody hold the goat in their arms and just stand up, and then you don't even have to bend. But larger goats, that's not going to be possible. Most adult goats, you're not going to want to trim in arm. They're just too big. But if you can trim them in arm, it's actually a lot easier because they can't get away. You want to start at the heel, the back of the hoof. So if we were going to trim her hoof, we would start at the back. So these are the front, where the toes are the front. and the back is towards the heel. Okay, so you start at the back and go forward. Okay, so start at the heel, work your way forward. You want to trim the heel even with the frog. I'm not going to try and show you her frog because I'm not trimming her hooves right now. So I'm just going to show you a picture of the frog on a goat's foot. That frog is the soft center of each toe. Okay, you want to trim the heel down to be even with that frog. And then you want to trim the walls. So the walls are here on the outside. These are the hoof walls. So after you've trimmed that heel down to match the frog, you want to trim the walls to match the heel so that everything is nice and even. You can use a rasp to really even and smooth it out. That really will help you. If the frog is damaged or ragged, you can use a really sharp hoof knife to kind of trim that frog like paper thin slices at a time. Careful, careful, careful. Keep slicing off a little bit at a time until you see pink. Don't go past the seeing pink part. The pink is blood. The frog is very sensitive and can bleed, so do not nick the blood supply to the frog. Okay? Trim carefully, trim gently, be gentle, gentle, gentle with that frog. When you're done, and the goat is standing up, so she's not standing up right now, but if she was standing up, okay, what you want is you want the hoof to be even the whole way around. So this is the coronary band, where the hair meets the foot, okay? That's the coronary band. You want the hoof to be even from the coronary band all the way down, okay? You want that hoof nice and even all the way around. You want it parallel. If you're dealing with a diseased foot, you're going to want to trim that foot last. So if this foot is the one that had hoof rot or something, thank you, Shadowfax. If that foot had hoof rot or whatever, then you would trim that foot last. Okay, so that you don't spread that hoof rot to the other feet. You would also isolate the goat so that they don't spread it to the rest of the herd, and disinfect your tools after treating that foot. So if you are dealing with any kind of hoof disease, isolate the goat, trim that hoof last, and disinfect those tools afterward. If your goat is limping, the first thing you want to check is if there's any kind of stone. So it's pretty common for goats to get a stone wedged in between the toes. So if your goat's limping, you just want to check and see if there's anything in there and kind of scrape it out with a pick if you need to. So you definitely need to check that. It's really important. If your goat starts limping, check for a physical cause. Could it be a diseased hoof or something else? Yeah. They could have bruised it. So Shadowfax is prone to stone bruises. Goats can get those too. So it could be a bruise. It could be a disease that you have to have a farrier or a vet look at. But it's probably a stone. So check the foot for a stone. And then if they have a stone bruise after you remove the stone, then the limping will continue for a little while longer. But I am going to talk about hoof rot next week. Just looking at the length of this video, I'm trying not to make them too long. But I'm going to talk about hoof rot next week. Hoof rot is a bacteria, caused by a bacteria, and it is contagious. So if there is disease in your goat's hooves, isolate that goat so it doesn't spread to everybody else. It's also possible that that bacteria is already in your soil and it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. But we'll talk more about that next week. This week I just wanted to talk about basically how to trim your goat's hooves and when they get long. You don't have to have a specific schedule, but it's nice to. So I like to do it around the time when we're deworming and vaccinating, but you might have your own schedule. It is important that it gets done. You can't just ignore it. They are domestic animals. They rely on us to trim their hooves. They're not like the goats living up in the mountains that are running up and down on mountains all day, wearing their feet off. They mostly hang out and do this. So you do have to take responsibility for trimming your goat's feet. You don't have to do it yourself. If you really don't want to do it or you can't do it, like I have a bad back, so bending's bad for me, I hire someone to do it. She doesn't charge much. She charges like $30 a head. It's not really that big a deal. And it's only like 4 times a year. It's not a big deal. So if you don't want to do it yourself, hire a farrier who does the split-toed animals. I'm sure there's one in your area. The internet's a wonderful thing. You can ask in your local Facebook farming groups to see if you can find somebody who is experienced in trimming goat feet if you don't want to do it yourself. You can do it yourself. You can certainly learn to do it yourself. But it's okay if you don't want to. It's one of those things, it's totally okay to hire someone to do. I do, because I have bad back. Anyway, that is about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.